Welcome back to Building and Breaking, where we talk about how brands are built, trust is broken, and what salon owners, hairstylists, and pro beauty brands can learn. I'm your host, Nina Kovner. And this week, yes, we are once again talking about one of my favorite brands, a brand that I have studied as a brand strategist and a brand that I have used as a customer. And this is actually a brand that our Instagram community asked that I feature on the podcast. So thank you, Instagram community. I love when I get suggestions. I'm not necessarily always going to take the suggestion and deep dive on the brand. However, this one was immediately yes. This week, we're talking about Olaplex. Olaplex didn't just launch a product, it created a category and really launched a movement. It gave hairstylists a new language and confidence around hair health and their relationship with their clients. It helped hairstylists get better results, and those better results helped build deeper trust. And while it felt like the industry had finally gotten it right. Something powerful, science backed, pro first, and deeply connected to what matters most to hairstylists. Olaplex did all of that and more. What made them, I believe, especially unique was while it kind of came out of the gates, I believe, as a premium, like science driven brand, it connected and landed with everyone. And when I say everyone, I mean all different levels of salons, luxury salons, mid market salons, even value salons. More importantly, they made every stylist at every level feel important and included. And this is a theme and a thread that we'll talk about throughout this episode because, you know, you can have the greatest molecule and you can't, someone's going to come out with a better one, by the way. However, and by better, I mean in the eye of the beholder or technology breakthroughs, right? So we could go on forever and ever and ever with, no, we've got the better molecule. No, we've got the better molecule. I mean, we see this with Olaplex and K18. We've got the better technology, or their technology isn't any, if you're, you know what I'm talking about. None of that matters more than the connection and the community. And Olaplex was brilliant at that in the early days. But as the brand scaled, that sense of connection and inclusion slowly began to fade. And that's typically what happens. It happens slow. Erosion of trust typically in business happens slow. Now, of course, there could be like some specific event that would be like an immediate break of trust, but that's not typically what happens. Typically, what happens in any business, whether it's a beauty brand, a salon, literally any business, is that it's so slow, it's almost undetectable if we're not paying attention. But then we will wake up one day and say, oh shit, what happened? So today, as we talk about Olaplex, it really is a case study of what happens when you have rapid growth, right? And you then move to serving multiple audiences and you begin to lose clarity around who you're speaking to and how you're speaking to. This is not a critique. This is about learning and evolving. It's about when brands lose their focus and lose their connection. I've talked a lot about serving multiple audiences, and brands do. However, if you want to continue to have relationships with those multiple audiences, you need to speak their language. So, you know, it's a great reflection for all of us because we all kind of lose focus. So Olaplex had a ton of clarity in the beginning. They were clear, they were relevant, they were grounded, and they were focused. They weren't trying to be everything to everyone, right? They were a very specific category of the market. You could call it bond building. Some people don't like to call it that anymore. It doesn't even matter, honestly. It was about health, hair health, integrity, and insurance, trust, right? Really building more confidence with hairdressers in the most important services that happen in many salons, which is chemical services, and long term, just general health of hair. They solved a real problem, and they spoke the stylist language with heart, with heart. I mean, the founder was highly engaged on the socials. That's how I first discovered Olaplex, was how active the founder was on social media. And remember, I started Passion Squared as a brand that was empowering our industry around the social and digital web, and the tools and how they could amplify word of mouth and blah, blah, blah. It was all social digital. So I was highly engaged on, I still am, highly engaged on social and digital. And I was like so inspired. I'm like, wow, the CEO, the founder, they really care. They didn't do traditional influencer marketing, even though that was happening. And influencers did love Olaplex, but they were focusing more on people of with influence. And there is a difference, right? An influencer, that's a business in itself, right? Influencer marketing, content creators, that whole category of people. That's their business. They get paid to do that. Versus people of influence are everyday hairdressers who had significant influence around their communities, online and off, who worked in the salon every single day, who saw incredible results, and they were so happy they talked about it a lot. So, I mean, clarity is everything. Clarity of brand is everything. And as is community. And when your message is focused on who you serve and the solutions that you provide, I mean, that's the greatest advertising in the world. I mean, that's word of mouth. I mean, that's word of mouth, whether it's online or offline. That's word of mouth. But it always begins with clarity of brand and staying focused and looking, going back to, just as a review, our brand story framework. Brand purpose, what problems are you solving? Brand promise, how you solve those problems. Brand people, who are you solving problems for? And brand products and services, what solutions do you create to help solve the problems of your people? So, I mean, I know it's hard in this highly connected world to think like, oh, we need hype, we need a big viral moment to grow. You don't. You don't. You need a clear brand story. You need a clear, consistent voice and solutions that matter to the people you serve. And yes, you can have more than one audience. However, it's more difficult, but it's possible. But you have to speak the language of who you're serving, whether it's consumers, clients, hairstylists, whatever. So Olaplex blew up. They grew super fast. They went through a sale. Things happen, but not always bad when things are sold. There's great stories of brands who have sold or gone, sold to private equity or sold to a larger conglomerate. And then there's stories of brands that have really, really fallen flat after a sale. I have been taking notes and again, studying this brand forever, but I started actually taking notes in my notes app. This is what a brand strategist geek I am. I literally have notes in my notes app from going back like 6 years ago on this brand. I don't work for them. I've never consulted with them for them. Like I've never worked for them. But this is what I do in my spare time. So as Olaplex expanded to retail and direct to consumer marketing and distribution, the shift in itself wasn't actually the problem. That's not a problem. However, at the same time, they kind of became quiet, and when they weren't quiet, they were defensive. Um, they just kind of slowly began to dissolve what the momentum and the connection that brought them to the dance. And at the same time, they were having, adding editorial stylists, celebrity collabs, all great marketing. However, the timing wasn't great, including a few kind of random product launches that it all just felt incredibly disconnected. Incredibly disconnected. And again, it was, truly believe a lot of this was timing. There was leadership changes. There's a lot happens. However, this is a study, right? We're doing a deep dive. And it's such a great reminder that mixed messages or going silent, that is another big trust breaker. Because, when Olaplex was struggling with all of the lawsuit stuff, the chatting about diversion and all of that, the response was what I believe was just like PR talking points. And hairdressers are smart, and they can sense it right away. And it just kind of like that corporate-y type vibe with a lack of empathy. Again, all timing, all timing. And it all happens today. I mean, whether we like it or not, it all happens online, right? Everything's so public today. And when we get into a sticky situation, and we all do in our businesses, because we're dealing with people and people are imperfect. But this defensiveness, this almost like this radical defensiveness, really breaks trust more than an actual failure. Meaning, I talked about this, I think, in the Aveda episode. Transparency is a trust builder, and I don't mean TMI. But transparency is a trust builder. And I feel like in this point in time, Olaplex really, really struggled. And it shows in their sales, right? It shows in their sales. It happened, but it happened. So people don't want like a highly curated press release. They want clarity. They want leadership. They want connection. And same with clients, right? When clients share a concern, when clients are concerned, I know it's not always fun to listen to. In fact, it's not fun at all to listen to. However, that's why we pause. Remember the pause process procedural. The power's in the pause. So instead of getting defensive, we can respond and react and reply in alignment with our brand. Again, a reason why clarity of brand story is so incredibly important, because it is the foundation for every decision we make. Responding to a not so awesome Yelp review. I mean, it happens. It happens. But defensiveness does not build trust. It burns time and energy. Right. And so I feel like this was a big turning point. Um, a big turning point for Olaplex, and this public pissing match with K18. We only have so much so much time in the day, so much energy in the day. And I share this with our clients and community all the time when we talk about comparison. And I know everyone's heard, the quote, comparison is a thief of joy, but it's much deeper than that from a brand strategy perspective, because every ounce of oxygen you contribute to doing these pissing matches, these public pissing matches about my molecules better than your molecule, that's time away from building relationships, building community, building trust, and providing solutions to the people you serve. No one's ever going to win a molecule competition, because at the end of the day, best is in the eye of the beholder. And you could tell me all day long, this science is patent. Yeah, that's cool. Like, that's important. It is a part of the story, an important part of the story, but it's not the lead. It's not the lead story. Because if it is, you're always going to be incredibly vulnerable to the next innovation, to the next breakthrough. So it's so important to remember that it's not always about the best, it's about the most aligned with who you serve. The best haircut. What is the best haircut? It's not about the hair, it's not about the molecule. Best is in the eye of the beholder. Best in the eye of the beholder in the context of this is whether it's an Olaplex salon or a salon client. It's how the client feels walking out the door. It's how the stylist feels using the product, engaging with the community, the emotional connection. That's how brands are built. That's how trust is built. So, you know, I know that if you are a client or in the Passion Square community or been following me, you know I won't shut the fuck up about scalp care. And the skinification of hair trends started a long, long time ago. And I have been passionate about it ever since my incredible team and I at my old job created a scalp care brand and launched it as a service product as much as a home care product. And I talked about that in the Aveda episode, I believe, as well. And this is we're it recent now. We're coming to today. So I'm an optimist. I have faith in Olaplex. I really do. I think their CEO is incredible. The moment I heard the announcement that they had a new CEO, you know, I did a deep dive on the CEO because this is what I do. And I believe that she, not only is she smart and experienced, I believe she really cares. I really do. And so, again, in my little notes app, I've been like, Olaplex, where's the scalp care? Olaplex, where's the scalp care? Olaplex, you have an opportunity to build more in salon relevancy. Because remember, when we talked about in the Aveda episode, one of the things that made Aveda so incredible and made people so connected and loyal is that Aveda took what would be typically a home care product, a shampoo, a conditioner, a lotion, an oil, or whatever, and turned it into a service experience. And that was brilliant. And also, that's what helped make Aveda salons some of the highest home care sales salons in the industry. I also talked about how they were the first $1 million salons, et cetera, et cetera. So every time I look at Olaplex, I think of service first, home care second. Service first because of the professional product that's used with chemical services and in salon treatment experiences and things like that. So in my mind, if I was the head of marketing at Olaplex, scalp care would have been an absolute no brainer as a next step because it is a service product, not as a home care product. Yes, scalp care at home is great, but where the value comes, where the trust is built, where the differentiation comes, what salons need most is to create more value, create more differentiation, create more elevated experiences, and build not only their team, but their profitability. Because at the end of the day, salons are service businesses. They are not retail businesses. Home care is an incredibly important part of the service, but they're not retailers, right? They're not Ulta and Sephora. They're service businesses. And Olaplex had everything they needed, almost everything they needed to lead the scalp care category in the current age, but they didn't. They did launch a product, which I was so excited to see a few months ago. And they may be launching more. I don't know. I don't work there. I have no intel. I have no intel as to what's happening in that building. However, as I said, I've studied the brand for a long time. I take a ton of notes, and I built the whole scalp care brand in my brain for them. But it was going to be focused all around services, just like the original Olaplex product. So when I saw the launch, I was really excited. But what I'm not excited about is I haven't seen any service related stuff. So again, this is not a critique on Olaplex. This is a lesson about getting clear on who you serve and providing solutions that matter to them. If you're a salon, that means your clients. When you're clear on your brand, you're clear on the solutions your clients need because you understand your clients. And that's what builds trust. So, in the case of scalp care, in the salon market, not retail, not Sephora, not Ulta, not direct to consumer, but in the salon market for scalp care, the service is the lead story here, not more bottles on the shelf, because salons don't need more bottles on the shelf. They actually need less bottles on the shelf. So again, I'm an optimist, and I really, really believe that Olaplex could be planning this right now. Again, I'm an optimist. I'm like, I know it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. Um, I truly believe that the next step for Olaplex is to build the service side of scalp care because it's a natural extension of hair health, right? Healthy scalp, healthy hair, skin care for the scalp, blah 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 blah. But not as an ad campaign, right? Not as a highly curated photo, as an action, as a strategy, as a movement, as an education play, as a way to build trust back with salons and hairstylists. Those are all the reasons. The results of that is yes, revenue will come, but you got to focus on the reason, not the result. The reason first, then the result. The result will be revenue. If all of that is done, the result will be revenue. So it's all about the solutions we create to help solve the problems of the people we serve. And even though Olaplex and many brands, professional, quote unquote, professional salon brands, are serving multiple audiences, it's possible. It's possible. And there are some that are doing it really well. They're selling direct to consumer, but they have such deep rooted relationships with the salon community they serve. Olaplex needs to get back to the fundamentals and reconnect with that everyday hairstylist. Get clear on that story and speaking the language of the people that they serve. This is all of us. This is getting back to what matters. Speaking the language of the people we serve. We talk about this a lot. I see hairdressers, I've seen it for 13 and a half years, on social media talking to each other, yet their audience is clients. So you see influencers and content creators and educators talking to hairdressers because that's their client. Different audiences, different language. Your content is your marketing. So a brand is always about the relationship, right? Consistency builds trust, trust builds relationships. It's ultimately about the community, not the ad campaign, not for hairdressers. And relationships that require that clarity and that empathy. You know, I was on TikTok. I was on TikTok. Like, I mean, come on, well, not everybody's on TikTok, but I am on TikTok. I love TikTok. Love all the animals on TikTok, and I love social listening. So, social listening TikTok's great for social listening. Anyways, I've been following Red Lobster is a brand I've been following because they are a typical story of when venture capital goes wrong, right? Private equity, whatever. And they've been in the news a lot. They were having lots of struggles, just kind of like lots of mishaps. And anyways, they brought on a new CEO. And so I've been following this the brand trying to see what's going to happen because they were struggling and now they are trying to get back on track and transform. And on my FYP, I don't know, TikTok knows us so well. On my FYP was an actual TikTok, the Red Lobster account with the CEO. And I was like, and again, I've been following the story around the CEO, but I've never seen him on TikTok until the other day. And I mean, I wish everybody could see if you're listening to this episode, go to the Red Lobster TikTok and watch the CEO's TikToks. Now, does every CEO need to be on TikTok? I mean, no. However, when we started this episode, I was talking about how Olaplex was so deeply rooted in the community, driven by the founder and CEO. And the Red Lobster CEO is kind of doing that. Not kind of, he is. He's honestly addressing the challenges in a very non-scripted way. And it is so crystal clear to me he understands the brand. He understands what made the brand great. He understands what's happening in today's world. And it's that clarity that's the power. It's the clarity. It's the acknowledgement. It's the look, yeah, we're focused. We're back. We're back, baby. And it's like that energy is priceless. It's priceless. Now, again, we're not doing absolute black and white thinking on this podcast. I'm not saying every CEO has the capability of making TikToks. However, if your brand is talking about being rooted in community, if your brand is, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way. And I think that for many of the pro beauty brands, I think that there could be more executives that get in front of the camera. I really do. Because there's some really great brands out there that are smaller brands that have grown into larger brands that are building community. So we all lose focus. It happens to the best of us. And that's always an opportunity to be like, you know what? Okay, let's get back to what matters. Let's regain our clarity. Because people will come back. I read all the comments on every one of those Red Lobster CEO TikToks. The comments are they're so inspiring. Like, yes, yay, we're so excited. Now, of course, time will tell. Well, time will tell if that actually helps the brand. I believe it's going to because it's such an iconic, like, legacy brand. And I believe that Olaplex is also an iconic legacy brand. It's always going to come back to what matters most to those you serve. It's always going to come back to what matters most to those you serve. Olaplex changed the game. They did. And this is a story about clarity, consistency, and care. Whether you're behind the chair, behind a brand, building something of your own, it's not necessary. It's not the best. The best is in the eye of the beholder. It's not about comparison. It's not even always about the science or again, we have the most advanced whatever. It's about how we make people feel. It's about how we make people feel. It's about our consistency of story with our actions. And it's about what we choose to do with the time and energy we have. It's about the long game. Because hype, especially in today's social and digital world, hype moves fast, but Trust is what builds long-term growth. Higher lifetime customer value, higher lifetime client value. And that's what we're talking about. Again, I have a ton of faith in Olaplex and their leadership. And I really do believe they will get back on track in the pro space. Because again, I'm an optimist and I love the brand. I would love to hear your thoughts. These episodes are tough. These episodes talking about pro beauty brands are difficult because I know how much people love these brands or love to hate these brands. Either way, I know that I know that people have feelings, and I do too. I hope you could tell from this episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you're looking to gain more clarity around your brand, you're a salon owner, independent hairstylist, educator, influencer, content creator. I've had a course for the last 13 years, creating your awesome brand, a complete course for beauty pros. We go through every step from brand story to brand identity to brand communications, including agreements, client agreements, team agreements, sign-in agreements, healthy boundaries, pricing in alignment with your brands, online marketing, and offline marketing. If you have questions, you can always find me at Passion Squared everywhere. My DMs are always open. And you can always email me at nina@passionsquared.net. I'd love to hear from you. Your feedback is incredibly important. It inspires me. It gives me the energy to keep creating these episodes for you. If you have a business bestie you think could find value in these episodes, I'd be so grateful if you shared. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you could drop a rating or review, that helps the podcast become more discoverable to the people that it can help and serve. So I appreciate that too. We'll be back next week with another new episode of Building or Breaking. Remember to be where your feet are. Take a deep, deep breath. Drop your shoulders. And know that you are so very loved. Thank you so much for listening. Have an awesome day. Bye.